Hello everyone, fans of stories and mysteries. Today we open a somewhat uncomfortable chapter of history, the one you don't find in glossy schoolbooks. We talk about the secrets, the dirty ones, that were hidden behind the shinier crowns. In the meantime, subscribe to the channel if you are passionate about these historical curiosities and leave a like on the video. Now let's start. In the great theatre of history, where crowns shine under the spotlights of power, not all sovereigns have embodied grace and nobility. Between sumptuous banquets and courts full of luxury, some kings and queens have gone down in history, not only for their deeds, but also for their poor personal hygiene. Isabella of France of Castile, the queen who didn't wash, famous for the unification of Spain and for having financed Christopher Columbus's voyage, Isabella utterly hid a surprising habit. She didn't bathe. Convinced, like many in the Middle Ages, that water opened the pores to disease, Isabella claimed to have washed only twice in her entire life, as a child and before her marriage to Ferdinand of Aragon. Her passage through the royal halls left behind a trail of intense odors, masked with incense and perfumes, a choice that was not only personal, but also linked to the beliefs of the time, on purity and spiritual protection. Louis XIV, the Sun King and the bad smell, symbol of the splendor of Versailles, Louis XIV was a man with an impeccable public image, but with less gleaming personal problems. In addition to avoiding baths, he used exorbitant amounts of perfume and handkerchiefs soaked in cologne. He also suffered from severe hemorrhoids, which led him to undergo a risky operation for the time. While his kingdom shone, the king secretly faced his pain, hidden behind the golden curtains of the court. Henry VIII, the king with the unbearable, smell famous for his 6 wives and his break with the Catholic Church, Henry VIII was a shadow of his former self in the last years of his life. Due to an infected ulcer on his leg and an increasingly heavy body, he almost completely stopped taking care of his hygiene. The stinking mix of wounds, ointments, and sweat was so strong that his palace had to be constantly perfumed with herbs. The court, although accustomed to the ruler's antics, struggled to tolerate his physical presence. Catherine the Great, clean inside but not outside, enlightened and refined empress, Catherine II of Russia had a singular contempt for the bath. She considered it superfluous and preferred to use powders and perfumes instead of water, which she considered too harsh for her skin. Although her court was one of the most sophisticated in Europe, Catherine left behind a trail of strong fragrances and something else. Charles V, the emperor's stench. Emperor of the Holy Roman Empire, Charles V avoided water as if it were poison. Afflicted by a severe form of gout and many other diseases, he believed that washing was dangerous to one's health. His room was often filled with medicinal odors, dampness, and mold, creating an environment that few could tolerate. Isabella II of Spain also shared with her namesake ancestor an aversion to water. During the winter, she washed only her hands and face with cold water, avoiding baths. Her body odor was often described in chronicles and contrasted with the imported perfumes used to cover it. Philip II, the king of smelly clothes, serious and devout Philip II of Spain completely neglected personal hygiene. He wore dirty clothes for weeks, accumulating odors and visible stains, refusing to bathe for fear of disease. In his opinion, cold water was more dangerous than the cold of winter itself. Feared for her religious persecutions, Mary I also neglected her personal appearance. She wore dirty clothes that she did not change for days and believed that bathing could weaken the body. Her palace became a dark and smelly place in the image of her tormented spirit. Between banquets, alcohol, and sumptuous clothes, George IV neglected his body. Overweight and lazy, he avoided water and covered himself with essences to mask bad odors. His excesses made him one of the most unkempt sovereigns of the British monarchy. Known as the Virgin Queen, Elizabeth once hid a very different reality behind her portraits. Her sugar-rotten teeth gave her foul breath, often commented on by foreign ambassadors. Her face, scarred by smallpox, was covered in layers of toxic lead makeup, which made the situation worse. Our journey through the less fragrant corridors of royalty comes to an end. We have passed through sumptuous eras and courts where luxury reigned supreme. But personal cleanliness was often a distant mirage. We discovered that among gold tapestries and ivory thrones, good smell did not always reign. Whether it was due to superstition, medical ignorance, or simple disinterest, kings and queens of all times have shown that power does not always go hand in hand with soap. Isabella of Castile, with her almost absolute refusal of the bath, reminded us how even religious devotion could merge with medieval fears. Louis XIV, the Sun King, taught us that not even the most splendid court in Europe could mask certain personal perfumes. Henry VIII, oppressed by his own body, showed us how power can become a prison of flesh and pain. Catherine the Great, Charles V, Bloody Mary, all united by a trail, not only of influence, but also, let's face it, of not exactly celestial smells. These rulers were not only historical figures, but human beings, subject to the weaknesses, fears, and limitations of their time. And their story, although it may make us smile today, reminds us how hygiene habits, which we take for granted today, have been a slow and often overlooked conquest over the centuries. But now I want to know from you, who do you think was the smelliest ruler in history? Which of these monarchs would have really benefited from an extra shower? Write it down in the comments below. And if this journey through crowns, shorts, and bad smells has intrigued you, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and share the video with friends who, maybe, forget their deodorant. History is not just about battles and treaties, it is also about details that make us see the greats of the past in a more human light, and sometimes more smelly. Subscribe to the channel Story of Asuta and leave a like on the video.